Wake up, wake up. Little late, but that's okay. Sometimes we oversleep through alarms when you have to have that loud fan on. I'm guessing it was really hot in Walnut Creek last night, Larry. How you doing? He's already hydrating. He's
back, very hot,
folks.
Went a little late last night on my my stream. Then we stayed up a little late because it was so freaking hot. Couldn't even really open the windows and turn on the fans till like about 1:45, because that's when the actual thermometer dipped to about mid-70s. So yeah, it was a warm night in the creek, and I overslept the alarm. Sorry, it's 8:59 and not 8:45 like we had planned.
That's
but
all right.
Nevertheless, here we are, and I am ready. I am prepped, and I'm ready.
Here we are. Welcome to Wake Up. It's Wednesday, July 3rd. No new news about the 49ers. Thanks for watching. Have a great day, everybody. That's basically where we are. You know, we got less than 2 weeks before training camp opens. So that's good. You know, football season is actually arriving when the rookies report. Veterans a week later. They get there on the 23rd. Rookies on July 16th, Larry. And, you know, we begin this show where we begin so many shows. I really want this Brandon Aiyuk deal done so they can just focus on winning football and playing football once the green flag drops on, you know, the training camp that Kyle Shanahan has gone out of his way to say it's so valuable that we're going to have everybody and Brock and everyone in here on the same page. We just want it to happen. You know, I'm seeing the latest with Mark Adams, NFL's Mike Garofalo, basically saying the sides are still no closer than they were, even though they had a couple of in-person meetings at Levi's Stadium over last week. And you would think that we're getting closer and closer to this happening, but there's no real indication of that happening. And it's just around and around and around and around we go.
Yeah, I mean, you know, and I believe it's Garofalo, but who, you know,
Garofalo, pardon me. Yeah, you are right. Garofalo.
Yeah, it looks like Garofalo. You want to say Garofalo. It was Genie Garofalo, but this guy's Mike Garofalo. But yeah, he says for Aiyuk and the 49ers, they've had their conversations recently, but they are no closer to a deal from my understanding, but they're also no closer to a trade request. So we talked about this a lot last night, and me and Raj on the live stream. And, you know, it's funny, Damon. It's like the more this goes on, the more I'm looking at all these different angles, and I'm watching Deebo Samuel really go at it as far as his offseason, and he looks pretty good.
Did you see the video of him on that treadmill the other day?
It's unbelievable. I mean, I don't even know if I'd call that a treadmill. It was like my treadmill doesn't perform like that.
Oh, my God.
It's an unbelievable treadmill that he was on, like a sprinting treadmill that's like almost like shaped like a half crescent. And he was just burning it up, going to over 21 miles an hour. Supposedly he was going 18 miles an hour was his personal best before. Now it's over 21 miles an hour. But yeah, he looked like he's working out and in great shape. And I brought this up to Raj. What if, I mean, what's the bet? You know, since everybody, okay, this is kind of how I would couch this. Since everybody, and when I say everybody, I mean Aiyuk, is after what's best for them, that kind of makes me start to think, okay, what's really best for the Niners? Since everybody's thinking about what's best for them, it's okay for the Niners to think about what's best for the Niners. And what's best for the Niners might be to let him play out on the fifth-year option. I know he's not going to be happy, but are you after his happiness or are you after his production? And the bottom line is, what if Deebo has a monster year and Aiyuk, because of this grand tour of I'm doing a documentary on my contract, let's say his production's kind of flat. Let's say Deebo outperforms Aiyuk this year. Then what? If you've signed Aiyuk long term, you sit there and you go, damn it, and you trade Deebo for whatever you can get in the offseason. If you haven't signed Aiyuk and he's playing on the fifth-year option, he's essentially competing against Deebo to see who stays. And in that situation, if you're really trying to motivate both players to have big years, what's the better way? I mean, why take away Aiyuk's motivation by paying him when you'd rather get the Aiyuk that hasn't been paid than the Aiyuk that has been paid? So as far as I'm concerned, the more this thing goes on, and the more I watch of Aiyuk, and the more I see of Purdy to Pearsall, and the more I think, you know what? It is absolutely in the Niners' best interest to pit these guys against each other, have a gigantic year-long competition, and pay the guy who you want to pay at the end of the year and trade the guy you want to trade at the end of the year when you have a much clearer picture of what Debo is, what Aiyuk is, what Cowing is, and what Pearsall is. What do you think?
I think you're absolutely on to something. And this is sort of the tactic that the 49ers are left to play, right? They've sat at the table. They've done the negotiation. They've had the talk. All of this is predicated on it's all unnecessary. It's all unnecessary. The player who is in question is under contract right now. So anything the Niners give him is frosting on top of the current deal that he's already signed to. And if I were them, if I were the 49ers, I would basically turn this into a, Brandon, we have tried really hard to massage this to everybody's satisfaction. Clearly, we've not been able to find the hot spot during the massage. What we all came in here to work on, we can't find that spot on you. You don't even know really where it is. So here's the deal. $27 million over 3, or you're playing your next 17 games for $14.5 million. You have 5 hours to reach this decision.
Ooh. Ooh. Why the 5 hours? If I may ask.
I just pulled that out randomly.
Okay.
We need.
Is that from Batman 2? No. Is that from Superman 2? Did you get that from Superman 2?
No.
No,
but just, an
5 hours.
actual,
No, I mean, it's interesting.
You've discussed.
I like that idea.
We've discussed it to death. Everybody knows every single element of this conversation. Damon and Larry know more about this than any other contract they've ever covered in their near 40 years of covering this football team. So this is it. This is the offer, an offer which we do not even owe to you right now, Brandon. We know you want it. This is what we're willing to give you in this moment. We also are big believers that contract and walk years are great motivation. And we think that you're going to play great football no matter what price point we sign you to. So do you want to play great football for $14.5 million and bet on yourself going forward? We'll call this our last dance together. Or do you really want to get paid out the ass right now? Maybe you're not making as much money as Justin Jefferson, but we are willing to pay you out the ass. We are going to change the financial outlook of every Aiyuk that comes after you forever. We're going to give you generational wealth in this next contract, or $14.5 million. Take it or leave it. You have 10 minutes. I just went from 5 hours to 10 minutes. See what a negotiator.
Well, I mean, I first of all, I don't, the 5 hours, the 10 minutes, that doesn't make sense. But what does make sense is a deadline. A deadline. Stop dragging us around by the nose and let's make a deadline. Now, is your deadline? I asked Raj this last night, Dr. Raj.
You mean Dr. Raj?
Yeah, Dr. Raj.
What is he?
I've been streaming with the guy for, a couple of years now. And by the way, out of the blue, after one of the shows the other day, he's like, oh, by the way, I have a doctorate in physical therapy. And I'm like, oh, that's awesome. I go, so you're Dr. Raj? And he's like, well, I'm not Dr. Raj because, he's not MD or anything, but he is, he's got a doctorate. So I said, from now on, we are calling you Dr. Raj.
At least call him Doctorate Raj.
Doctorate Raj. Doctorate Raj. We told that joke about the Curb Your Enthusiasm where Larry's neighbor steals his paper and he confronts him and he's like, hey, you stole my paper. And the guy's like, Larry, I'm a doctor. And that was his entire defense for why he didn't steal his paper. He's like, I still think you stole it. He's like, Larry, I'm a doctor. And it goes on for like 5 minutes. It's awesome. But no, we were talking about this last night with Raj, now I lost my train of thought.
No, basically, we're talking about how deadlines make things happen, and the 49ers, I think, need to put that hardball deadline in front of Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah, exactly. Don't let it go all year. Raj's deadline was the reporting of camp. my deadline was like the first preseason game. Like when we're done with the first preseason game and we got 2 preseason games left, if you're not there, I don't care what conversations we've had. We get to the end of the first preseason game and you're not in camp. I'm going to take that as you really don't want to be here. You really you're 100% about the most money, and I'm going to seek out trade partners. So that's our deadline. And I would just give him a deadline like that and just be like, hey, look.
See, I don't think
we
understand the Niners enough time. I mean, I would have this thing trained. I would
don't think that gives the Niners?
No. How are the Niners going
gives
to
them more time? Right? Doesn't that give? But you're saying decide in the next 10 minutes. I'm saying decide by whatever, August 10th or whatever it is.
Yeah, my deadline would be July 23rd. That's when veterans are reporting to training camp. Because I would.
Raj agrees with you. I mean, you and Raj are in lockstep. He made the same argument that like when everybody's there, he wants to see you.
I'm a doctor.
I did not steal your paper, Larry. I'm a doctor. I still think you stole it. I still think you stole Larry, I'm a doctor. It's a great scene. It's almost as good as when he buys weed on camera and he's like, is it swag? He's like, who do I? You give me the swag first, or I give you the money first?
Let it go.
Let it go. Just let it go. Put the money in my pocket. Then I'll put the swag in your pocket. Oh, it's just an awesome scene. But anyway, yeah, I mean, I just think that there has to be some kind of a deadline. I mean, the one thing the Niners can't have, they cannot have Aiyuk holding out at all. You know, not when they have this many receivers, not when they're in their Super Bowl window, not when they've been putting all these man hours into trying to get this thing done, not when they're trying to run it back after being in the Super Bowl. They can't afford to have him not show up until the last day possible because he's trying to make a statement, or 24 hours before the season opener against the Jets because he's trying to make a statement. He's already probably not worked in the offseason the way he normally would work because he's spending hours doing the Pivot podcast. He's spending hours with Jaden Daniels and Eno Benjamin. He's spending time making a documentary about his pursuit of a new contract. I mean, don't tell me these things don't take any time.
Wait a minute. There's an actual documentary being made here.
He's filmed. That's what came out in the Pivot podcast. Is that he's filming this for a documentary.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes. It has gotten way out of hand.
Yeah.
That's not there's some things that are like, hey man, that's just par for the course. That ain't. All right. Making your own documentary is not par for the course. That's above and beyond. So I love Aiyuk. I'd like to have Aiyuk, but if it drags on, I think you pull the plug. And then the question is, where do you send him? What do you want in return? I think, some of the ideas that I've heard, I mean, first of all, the Commanders right now, we just watched a Pivot podcast where he brought Jaden Daniels into the studio. He announced to the world that Jaden Daniels is the quarterback that can take Aiyuk's game to the next level. He kind of disrespected Purdy in the process. He really talked up his special relationship with Jaden Daniels. The entire podcast room was like sitting there rooting for him to play with Jaden Daniels. If he wants to be a Commander so bad, make it happen. Who cares? I mean, seriously, at this point, who the fuck cares? Get him down the road. The Commanders have Jonathan Allen. They have Emmanuel Forbes. They have Jahan Dotson. They've got Luke McCaffrey. They've got Scary Terry McLaurin. They have players that they can throw you that match up with your needs, and you can just pivot and keep rolling. That's what I would do. And if it wasn't them, I wouldn't send them to Green Bay, but I'd send them to another AFC team. People were the one that I threw out the other day and it wasn't my idea. I saw it in an article, but you know what? The more you think about it, the more it makes sense. If I said to you, I'm giving you, and this is to me, I've brought this scenario up a couple times because this is kind of like, we're not really invested. We're observing. We're informed and opinionated observers, but we're not invested. And there's a big difference because when you're invested, you see things clearer. and you cut through all the minutia and the bullshit, and you get right to what's going to help my team win. If I gave you, Damon, $1 million ticket on the 49ers to win the Super Bowl, and you can either have Brandon Aiyuk or you can trade Brandon Aiyuk to Denver for Patrick Surtain and Marvin Mims Jr. or some replacement receiver, not named Cortland Sutton because he makes big bucks, but let's say a Denver receiver and of minor note and Patrick Surtain Jr. If you just took out the receiver and said it was Surtain or Aiyuk, what would you rather? Who would you rather have on your team as you try to win the Super Bowl? Based on the fact you've drafted Pearsall, based on the fact that you've drafted Cowing, based on the fact that you have Debo, have JJ, have Conley, have all these other receivers, and a bevy of running backs to boot, I'd rather have the number one corner. To be honest, at this point, I'd rather have Surtain. If you said, you can have either or, and I've got $1 million ticket on the Niners winning the Super Bowl, I think I might get in this matchup with Detroit and need to stop Amon-Ra and Jameson Williams. I may get in against Green Bay, and I got to stop their bevy of receivers. I may get in against Hollywood Brown and Kelsey and company with Mahomes, and I'm going to need a number one corner, almost more than I'm going to need Brandon Aiyuk and more depth at wide receivers. So, if this thing gets to a point, I think,
well, I mean, it's got to be. It's kind of at that doesn't it sound like the Niners kind of are, but he's not. Like his mom is a Niner fan. He is the NorCal guy who wants to play for the Niners. The Niners have already told him in the meeting, hey, you know what? We're not on the same page, and we don't anticipate getting on the same page. So that's almost like announcing really loudly, we're not giving in to your requests. Well, now it feels like there's a third master being served here, and this is the Brandon Aiyuk My Contract documentary. Is he looking for some sort of a dramatic flourish or finish to this documentary, and that's why he's dragging this thing through, just through the mud on it all? I'm like, I don't know. That bothers me. Again, Aiyuk has always been a lunch pail kind of guy, and he really has given into his diva tendencies. I also don't really score that against wide receivers. I feel like it's a feature, not a bug, that's built into the position. I would never.
You got to have confidence to play the perimeter on either side of the ball.
Look, and I don't begrudge a guy looking to cash in that one big ticket that you really get when you're a wide receiver. You get one elite contract in your career. That second contract, if you're really the man, and this guy's had Pro Bowl years and 1,000 yards in back-to-back seasons, I understand why he values this moment so intensely. But I also do think, again, if we're just getting down to the nitty gritty of the numbers game, let's say the 49ers did sign Brandon Aiyuk. They give him his $30 million. Everybody's happy. Great training camp. And in week one, first snap of the year, torn ACL, Aiyuk is out of the picture all year long. I don't think for a second that the 49ers, can now no longer win a Super Bowl. It gets harder, but I don't think it is a season changing equation.
Well, it changes it. It changes it.
Right. But I think X marks the spot is still the Super Bowl with or without Brandon Aiyuk.
Yeah. He's not. So you lose Trent Williams, you're cooked.
Right. So
you lose Bosa, you're cooked. You lose Purdy, you're cooked. There's probably one or two
on that alone. And look, I've been, in every discussion we've ever had, I've always been the pro signing Brandon Aiyuk guy. Very rarely stood on the other side of the argument. Maybe you do say, look, we got a $60 million quarterback coming up. We can't afford you anymore. You're really good, but you've been a pain in the ass over this thing. And it's just, we think that we've gotten a deeper wide receiver room than we had in the past. You go to Brandon Aiyuk and you say, we are now trying to trade you. Does that bring him back to the table? Does then he go, oh, no, we'll wait for the end of the documentary. My mom's got to be fucking clapping on her front porch going, that's my baby. He's still a Niner. And if you need that shot, you're about to blow it. If you want the last scene of your documentary to be you taking off in an airplane from SFO and then it ends with a question mark, Like we can do that too, Brandon. Is that?
He's already. Did you watch the entire pivot?
No, I didn't watch any of it.
Okay, so I was getting the sense listening to this. He was asked, Damon, very direct questions. Two of them that he was asked very direct. One of them was, when you factor in all the things the Niners are, the players, the talent, the Super Bowls, the consistent postseason, Shanahan,
all of it.
You can have, the Niners, or you could have, if you had to, would you rather have that, or would you rather have your money? And he's like, I believe I've got here by gambling on myself, by betting on myself. In other words, I want the money. I want the big bag. And then he was asked a very direct question by Ryan Clark. And the question was, what is your number one priority? Because that really, Clark's a media guy at this point too, even though he's his buddy. He's trying to get to the kind of the
right. He knows
the
what
crux of the matter.
He knows what soundbite's going to trend on Twitter.
Right. And so he said, what's your top priority? And Aiyuk didn't hesitate. He said, taking care of my family. Number one. Number two is putting myself in position to be the best wide receiver I can be. None of those have to do with winning a Super Bowl. None of those have to do with staying with the Niners. Taking care of my family means money. So if we wondered, and we debated this, and I'm sure you did on other streams, I know I have on other streams. At the end of the day, we were kind of wondering aloud, what's Aiyuk really about? Is he about being on a great team and securing a big, big bag and taking care of his family? Or is he about being on whatever team and get the biggest bag? And I think it's very clear after listening to this podcast that his goal is to land the biggest bag. And if he's got to do it in San Francisco, fine. If he's got to wind up in Las Vegas with the Raiders, that's fine. If he's got to go to New England, that's fine. If he's got to be in Washington, Pittsburgh, he doesn't care. Just the biggest bag he can get. That's what his top priority is, taking care of his family. And, the only thing that makes you think that he might come back is the fact that his mom is obviously the person that he wants to take care of, and she's a lifelong Niner fan and very passionate. But he points out, hey, man, she's with me. Anywhere I go, she'll be with me. And obviously we know that. But that's kind of the way I see it. I just think that the other thing I really didn't like is, I didn't like the fact that I feel like he kind of disrespected Brock Purdy. Now, somebody here in one of the supers, the one super we have here is this one from Niner Cali Boy. He says, Larry, last week you were on Brock Purdy about not standing up for Aiyuk. Now this week you act surprised that BA didn't stand up for Brock Purdy. Make that make sense. Well, first of all, they're different comments and different different streams at different days and different thoughts. But yeah,
well, it's one.
I just pointed out that Brock had an opportunity to back Aiyuk thoroughly and didn't. And I guess you're right, Niner Cali Boy, that really what BA served up there, because he also backed Brock, but not fully. So in some ways, it's kind of like tit for tat.
Well, I think that it's, a podcast, and sitting down to do a podcast is a lot different than standing behind a lectern at an NFL press conference.
But they essentially, I agree, but they essentially did the same thing. Purdy, loves his receiver. We know that. If we had asked him 9 questions about Aiyuk, he would have given us 9 complimentary answers, right? He likes Aiyuk. He loves Aiyuk. But instead of giving Aiyuk more power and more clout, he sided with his bosses and said, hey, at the end of the day, I'm sure Kyle and John will, I don't know what Brandon's contract deal is above my pay grade. And I'm sure at the end of the day, whether they get him or if they get somebody to replace him, they'll get good players in here. So he totally was with Kyle and John, and with the
quarterback's got to be a company man. It just comes with the job. It does.
I guess, but he could have said, but I believe in John, I believe in Kyle, but I'll say this, man, that's my number one guy. And that guy's pretty damn special. And I'd love to have him here. He didn't say any of that. He just said what he said, which was backing the team. So then Aiyuk comes out and he's there and he's got his buddy right there in the room with him. And he's like, Jaden Daniels can take me to the next level. He was complimentary of Brock, but he was more complimentary, it seemed, of Jaden Daniels. So Niner Cali boy, you're absolutely right. I mean, I look at it different. I look at it, basically the same. I mean, I think I'm being consistent. You said, Larry, last week you were on Brock Purdy about not standing up for Aiyuk. Yeah, I mean, he could have done more, is what I said, to support Brandon Aiyuk publicly and chose not to. And fittingly, Aiyuk kind of paid him back because he did support him. He did say he's the right quarterback, but he could have done more to celebrate Brock, and instead he celebrated Daniels. So in a lot of ways, they both did the same thing to one another.
If you can, Larry, I don't know if you can bring it up. It just appeared on my chat. I think it should be on the chat, but SF Indigo applies to
non-live chats.
Yeah. He basically said that, Brandon Aiyuk is a system receiver. We talk about system quarterbacks all the time. If the Niners really believe that the system is the genesis of receiver production, then yeah, walk away. Walk away.
Seriously. If you do believe that anybody can thrive in your system, then walk away. But here's the other angle on this. Supply and demand. If the supply was really scarce, there'd be more urgency. But it's not. The supply is in great number. There's all kinds of teams running spread in college football. So every single year, there's a receiver group that's 35 deep, and you can find good receivers in rounds 1 through 5. And there's a ton of free agents every year a ton of wide receivers in free agency. So it's not like quarterback. It's like, why are you paying, mediocre quarterbacks $20, $30, $40 million? Because there's no alternative. Because otherwise you're looking at Mason Rudolph and you're losing games. And, the teams that have the quarterbacks win in the NFL. The teams that don't have the quarterbacks lose all the time. You may or may not win a Super Bowl based on the talent of your quarterback, but you will absolutely lose and lose huge if your quarterback stinks. Yep. Name me the best team in football whose quarterback stinks, whose quarterback's awful. Right? I mean, seriously. I mean, if we did a little exercise, who is the best?
Well, so there is no current team that pops into my mind, but you set up that scenario and Trent Dilfer's name blinks like a neon sign in my mind.
The Ravens. Yeah, because the 2000 Ravens had unbelievable defensive talent. You could also say Brad Johnson, right? Because he also had the same thing 2 years later with the Buccaneers. Heck, you could probably say Jimmy Garoppolo with the Niners. They were one of the best teams with one of the, iffy quarterbacks. But I'm thinking right now, who's a really good football team with a really iffy quarterback in the NFL?
You know what? I'm going to give him a little problem. This is me being nice to a team I'm not normally.
Jared Goff?
The Raiders. I think the Raiders got a pretty good football team, and the biggest incomplete on that roster is their quarterback room.
Yeah. The Raiders? You think the Raiders are a good football team except for the quarterback?
No, I think the Raiders got talent on their offensive line. I know that they've got talent on their defensive line.
But they're not a great team. Like the Lions went to the NFC Championship game and they have Jared Goff.
But I think that they're really talented, and they got the kind of talent that if all of a sudden a Pro Bowl quarterback is walking into the Raiders room, a Pro Bowl quarterback is putting 4 wins on whatever the Raiders win total is this year, right? So let's say they finish, if the Raiders are about to be an 8-win football team, they could have maybe gotten to 12 wins with a good quarterback. They got an awful lot of talent at tight end and wide receiver. They got talent on their defensive line, their offensive line. They're not bad. They're not god awful, but Aiden O'Connell and Gardner Minshew catching a heater for 3-4 weeks in a row is what they're betting on.
I would say the two teams that I think of when I think of teams that are pretty good teams but just don't have a quarterback, I would say Seattle right now with Geno and whoever they have a quarterback. They're not there. They're decent on both sides of the ball, except they don't have the quarterback.
Let's see what they look like in the post Pete Carroll era. You know?
And I think McDonald will help them on defense. But to me, it's Detroit's the poster child for good team with a quarterback that's just kind of Goff's not terrible, but Goff's just kind of But the Lions are much better than that. They're a really good team.
Doesn't matter if you have one ass cheek and 3 toes. I will beat your ass.
I will beat your ass. That doesn't matter.
You can't say Lions without me thinking about that. So
it's one of the greatest sound bites in the history of sound bites.
Look, let's just wrap up kind of the Brandon Aiyuk discussion again, which we've been having now for 3 months. I mean,
we have, and the talk is the latest is that despite the fact, see, here's why today's news is a little discouraging, because Aiyuk had that Pivot podcast. In the Pivot podcast, as they were talking up Jaden Daniels and the beauty of Daniels and the unbelievable possibility that Aiyuk could play with Daniels, Aiyuk said, where does it stand with the Niners? He's like, I've got one more meeting with the Niners. If it goes well, I'm going to be a Niner. And if it doesn't go well, then I would like to play with Jaden, and we can get to that point. Well, supposedly they had that meeting, and supposedly it went well. And then literally, I think 48 hours later, there was video of Aiyuk driving into the facility. And you figured maybe the deal was going to get done right then and there. But then here we are a few days later, and they say they're no closer. Now, there was a report by Pelissaro as well saying that the Niners have tabled all, contract negotiations because they're on vacation, and nothing's going to get done until after 4th of July weekend. So that period between the end of 4th of July weekend till the beginning of training camp, when the veterans report on the 23rd, that is their window.
That's
and
it.
If they get it done in that window, and that's your deadline, by the way, and I can go with that.
I want a contract sign or a trade committed between Monday of next week and veterans reporting on the 23rd.
Right.
And I think the 49ers owe that to themselves, and they just owe this conversation to not join a single practice. You don't want this conversation to be a murmur in a meeting. You don't want anyone in that wide receiver room to be like, where's Brandon? Where's Brandon? You just don't want it. You want to be going forward. You want to be completely your off-season focus is off. You're off the off-season. As soon as you are in the 2024 season, the minute veterans report to training camp. And I just wanted to be focused on football. And again, I do want Brandon Aiyuk on this team. But the closer we get to this not happening, the more I'm starting to believe and talk myself into, well, it doesn't need to happen. Again,
I'd rather have him on the team.
He said, look, sometimes a deadline is a difference. The Niners need to put a hard offer on the table, and either this or that. And here's the thing, Brandon. This is how you really play hardball if you're the 49ers. You call up Brandon Aiyuk's agent, because Brandon is way too personally involved in this. He's taking this all way too personally. You call Brandon Aiyuk's agent and you say, guess what? We're not trading your boy. Your boy's a 49er next year, full stop. That's that. Do you want to be a 49er for 14 and a half or 26 and change? You're not getting your trade, chump. You're not going.
Saying yank your offer. Yank the offer.
You called Jaden Daniels back and say you look forward to seeing him on the highlight reel because that's as close as you're going to get this year. We're not trading you. You are playing for $14.5 million or this new offer. Those are your two options. Those are your only options. We will not be trading you.
Well, so then what if he holds out? And if he holds out, then I want to trade him.
If he holds out,
we are not trading you, and then he holds out, then you trade him.
If he holds out, guess who is in a contract option year next year then?
Well, that's if he holds out for the whole year. But here's the thing. What you want to avoid is he holds out until the day before the deadline that he needs to report to the crew of the year. And that, I think, is in week 6. You don't want that. You can't play that game. If he wants to play that game as I'm going to do the least possible and show up at the last possible day just to have the year accrue, that's hostile. I'm moving on. That's it. I mean, if that's your plan, I'm not letting you get to that plan. That's why my deadline will be maybe a little softer than yours. I'll give him an extra week. But if he isn't there after the first preseason game, I'm moving on, man. I'm moving on. And your idea, are you saying pull the offer and just tell him you're playing either on the 5th-year option or we'll do this next year? Are you pulling your offer or are you leaving your offer on the table? Because
no, I'm giving him a hard deadline and saying, like, if you want to sign a new deal, you got to sign it by this. If not, you're playing for what you've already signed to, by the way.
Yeah. It's hardball.
Yeah, it's hardball. But here's
the only thing is, what if the rest of the team views that as hostile? That's the one thing you have to.
I don't care anymore. We tried to do it the right way. We used all the honey. We used a lot of carrots. We got to go to the stick now. We got to go to the whip hand. And that's the way it is. And look, I think everybody.
There has to be an end to this thing. It can't just go on and on and on and on.
It's got to end. It's got to end.
And I'll tell you this. I'll tell you what my comment to Aiyuk would be is I'm getting the feeling that if you don't get 100% what you want, that you're not going to be 100% in it. Like, you're not going to be you're not giving us 100 unless we go and give you exactly what you want. I'm a little concerned about that. I'm a little concerned. Are you going to be in the right frame of mind to do all the little things that make you block downfield and all the dirty work? Are we going to be cool here all year with you? If we don't cave to your demands, are you going to pout? Are you going to be a pro?
I think this guy is enough of a pro and enough of a football player that once that coin gets flipped, like, he turns into a football player. I don't think you can go through the motions on a field and get away with it and not get exposed or not get injured because you're doing that. I don't doubt Brandon Aiyuk's dog at all. I don't. Brandon Aiyuk is my kind of guy when it comes to playing football. He really is. He's not my kind of guy when it comes to negotiating this contract. The only thing I don't like about Brandon Aiyuk, the only doubt I have about Brandon Aiyuk is this offseason negotiation. Everything about him is a player that I really like. I really admire.
Oh, I think we're all in that category. We all admire him as a player, but this can't be about him. This has to be about the team.
Right. And that's
so it transitions from being about the team to him as soon as we get into the team's all here and you're not.
It was about him this offseason. And then it remained too much about him. And now it's got to be about the team again. And that's why the team's got to make the hard choice. And that's why the hard choice in the deadline, Larry, I don't think plays poorly in the room. Because at some point, everyone who has a signed contract to play with the 49ers starts thinking about, hey, all I want to do is win a fucking Super Bowl. That's it. That's it. Every single 49er, every uniform should be occupied by a guy who is obsessed with winning a Super Bowl. And if we have to take a bus full of children and drive them off a cliff to do it, one of the guys on this roster is willing to do that. I don't care who gets hurt. I don't care whose feelings are hurt. I don't care who cries. We need to win a Super Bowl, and we need to win one now.
Perception matters, though. I'll tell you that, because if it's perceived as, hey, man, you took care of CMC and you did it quickly, and he didn't even have to really complain very much. And all of a sudden, he just misses one day of
the greatest players in the league.
But I mean, he's one of he misses one mandatory mini camp, and suddenly he's got a brand new deal. And Aiyuk's grinding, and you don't want to give in.
Hey, man. Hey,
so
dude,
is CMC the best running back in the game? Yeah, but what's Aiyuk as far as receivers? The 6th, 7th best receiver? I mean,
I don't know.
A top 10 guy.
One guy scored 7 touchdowns. The other guy scored 7 touchdowns and then added 14 more. 21 touchdowns gets paid. 7 touchdowns gets negotiated. That's the way it works.
I hear you. I mean, a lot of people would argue that's putting way too much emphasis on touchdowns, especially on a team with this many weapons. But
no, there's no such thing as you're putting too much emphasis on touchdowns. That's crazy person talk.
I agree, but I mean, there's only so many. You're getting the red zone. Only one guy can score a touchdown, and there's lots and lots of.
Sure,
good.
I remember when this team.
I mean, I got raked over the coals earlier this year by Vish because I was like halfway through the year. I said I'm disappointed in Brandon Aiyuk's touchdown percentage, and he's like, "Well, he's on a 1,300 yard pace for yards," and I'm like, "Yeah, but he's only got 2 touchdowns, two in the middle of the year." When they got to the halfway point of the year, he had 2 touchdowns.
Well, again, it's just one of the
you're
reasons
talking about to a guy who watched Jerry Rice score like 23 one year.
Look at it this way. How about this? The reason why Christian McCaffrey's deal was taken care of and the reason why Brandon Aiyuk's deal was not taken care of is because one guy is a future Hall of Famer, first ballot level talent, has been here for 15 minutes and is already one of the 10 greatest Niners that have ever put the uniform on. The other guy's Brandon Aiyuk. That's the difference. And it's a big difference. They're not even in the same fucking neighborhood in terms of importance to this team or talent. So I really like Brandon Aiyuk, but he ain't Christian McCaffrey.
I don't know about that. I mean, as far as Aiyuk's not important to the team.
Look at it this way. Everyone was on this team. Everyone played together to varying results. Christian McCaffrey shows up, and they've virtually been unbeatable since. He's a difference maker.
Well, he's good. There's no question he's good. So, but I mean, Aiyuk's damn good too. I mean,
he's really good. He's really good.
Aiyuk's probably. I mean, there's Jefferson, there's Chase, there's Tyreek. There might be 1 or 2 other guys, and then it's Aiyuk. So he's basically a top 5, top 7 type wide receiver. I mean, they're pretty damn close.
He's really good. If I said you got to put together a football team to go play, and you get the entire pool of wide receivers to choose from, and you can take 5, Brandon Aiyuk's not on your team.
You don't think he's top 5?
No.
I mean, there's Tyreek, there's Jamar, there's Jefferson. Who else you got in front of him? I don't put
Cooper Kupp.
I don't put CeeDee Lamb in front of him. Okay, if you want to go Cooper Kupp.
AJ Brown.
See, that's where I would probably go Aiyuk. But okay, it's whatever. It's debatable.
Amon-Ra St. Brown.
Yeah. Amon-Ra catches a lot more balls. He's a good route runner. I think they're comparable. Blood Moon says BA saying that he doesn't care about a ring.
Freaking DJ Moore.
Would this team really want a player who doesn't care about winning a ring when the window is open? He didn't say that he didn't care about a ring, but he just didn't prioritize it as number 1. So, he was asked, what's your number 1 priority? And if he had said win a ring, then that's advantage Niners. But he said, I want to take care of my family, which is his way of saying, I want the biggest bag. I want the biggest bag. And that's okay. And it's like, it's okay. It's like anything else. It's like,
wait. Kenny Powers saying, Cooper, you're delusional. First of all, you spelt "your" wrong. Second of all, Cooper Kupp.
It's a little bit of a dated reference because he was
MVP.
He wasn't as good last year.
MVP. He was hurt last year. He wasn't on the field for half of the year.
Right. So I mean that matters.
But Cooper Kupp
is a damn good receiver.
It's incredible. He's absolutely incredible. He's got a Lombardi trophy and MVP votes, and Brandon Aiyuk hasn't ever been around either of them. So come on.
Somebody said Devontae Adams. Tribe says Puka is actually playing better than any schmucks we have. Whether you say it's Puka or if it's Kupp, I mean, you could make an argument for both of them. You can make an argument for.
I got about a half an hour left here, Larry. My morning's starting to fill up here, so we got to move on. Brandon Aiyuk, nothing has changed. What a pain in the ass this whole thing has become. It's time for the Niners to officially play hardball with a guy who's already under contract, for God's sakes.
Blood Moon says it needs to be number 1. He will get his bag. No, I understand what you're saying, Blood Moon, and I'm with you. And I'm the one who made the point that by saying that you're prioritizing your family, you're essentially saying the biggest bag is your number 1 priority and no mention of winning. So I didn't love that either. So I'll freely admit I didn't love that. I didn't love how he didn't back Purdy, but Purdy didn't back him as the other previous chatter had in there, and that's true. Purdy kind of backed him partially. He kind of backed Purdy partially. So I guess it's a little tit for tat on that.
And look, if the deal was signed today, they'd be having lunch at 1:00 this afternoon. You know what I mean? Like everyone's going to be, the minute the deal is struck, if the deal is struck, it's going to go back to normal and everybody's going to be nice and happy and fine and great. And that's what we all want. That's just concentrate and focus on winning a Super Bowl. It's really all that matters. Tashaun Gibson actually appeared in a headline with news attached to it that is breaking news. Happened yesterday, Tuesday afternoon. We learned that Tashaun Gibson, who has played an awful lot of snaps for the 49ers over the last few years. I mean, he started their Super Bowl. He was one of the leading tacklers in the Super Bowl. He's got a 6-game PED suspension. Kyle Posey wrote, for the first time in 2 seasons, the 49ers will have a new starting safety. Tashaun Gibson remains unsigned. He's going to turn 34 in August. And after giving the 49ers 2 seasons of high-quality snaps and did so in a pinch after the team signed Gibson off the streets ahead of the 2022 regular season, he got popped taking something that he shouldn't. Now, again, it's not good. We can't pretend this is a good thing. It's also the least surprising thing. The man is 34 years old. He's played 12 years in the league. He's trying to hold on for one more paycheck. And this is the cost of doing business in football. There's not a single guy in that locker room on any team who is there because he does just a lot of push-ups. Good Lord. Everybody's on a little something. The real sin here is that he got popped, he got caught, because there's no such thing as a random drug test in professional sports either. You know they're coming. So it's unfortunate, probably means the end of his career. It's also something that any team who's looking for a safety 6 weeks from week 1 will just totally overlook if he's available and they want to sign him. But he's done with the Niners. And that's not because of this. It's because of Talanoa Hufanga and Malik Mustafa and Jair Brown. That's why he was done with the Niners. And he's 34. It's a shame, but it's what happens.
Lynch said a few weeks ago, or maybe a month or so ago, hey, there's a possibility that Gibson could return. And I would imagine this puts an end to that. I just, he isn't what you're looking for. I mean, he's a replacement player. That's what he is. He's a player that you go to. Now, the Niners liked him because he did what their previous safety tandem of Jimmy Ward and Jaquiski Tartt didn't do, and that is actually catch, easy interceptions. I think Gibson's got like close to 40 career interceptions, and so that's watching him the last couple of years with the Niners, that's really what he's good at. I mean, is he awesome in the box against the run? No. Takes bad angles, doesn't always wrap up. Is he an awesome coverage player? No. But what he is if the ball gets tipped in the middle of the field, he's got a good instinct to flow to the ball, and he'll pick that ball out of the air and he won't drop it. That's basically what he did for the Niners. He actually had some good
in the locker room and he played well. I mean,
he was a leader on a young group of DBs, and he played okay. I won't say well, because I mean, look at his run fits against Detroit and Green Bay. I mean, the Aaron Jones rumbled against the Niners. Montgomery and Gibbs rumbled against the Niners. And the biggest difference in the Niners run D between the last couple of years has been they had Tartt, they had Ward, now they have Hufanga, and they've had Gibson, and then now this Jair Brown. Only Jair Brown showed any real. I mean, Hufanga was hurt, but at the end of the year, only Jair Brown was the only safety they had between Jair, Logan Ryan, and Gibson. Jair was the only one who came up and starched anybody in the run game. So Gibson's run fits were not good. His coverage was not good. He didn't really mirror anybody. But what he was good at was if the ball got tipped in the air, he had a good chance to come down with it. And did on more than one occasion.
Here's the thing. No matter what the results were, he was this team's starting safety for 16 games last year and a handful of games the year before that. He played well.
He was middle of the pack.
He was all right. He was a stopgap. He was a Band-Aid that fit better than most Band-Aids fit. I'll give him that much.
This is a good one. Robert Phoenix says Gibson was a good soldier, a valuable player. He made interceptions. That's
kind of who he was.
Pretty much it. That's
who he was.
And he got guys lined up. Gave him a veteran influence. I mean, he was a really good player on a really good Jacksonville defense when he was younger. But he's just he used to have two phases of the game. He's never been a great run fit guy, but he used to be better in coverage and a productive interceptor. Now he's just a productive intercepter.
Right.
So it's time for them to move on anyway.
There's no such thing as every single one of these players is awesome all the way around, no flaws in any of them. That doesn't exist. He was good.
No, but the game is becoming every year that goes by more of a passing game. So the emphasis on coverage becomes bigger. Like if you say to me, who's the replacement? Like do they have Gibson's replacement? Like, I don't know. Well, I'm not really sure who the starting free safety is. That's like actually kind of one of the big question marks with the Niners. But it might be Renardo Green. And I know he's a corner, and people would say, well, isn't he kind of small? And yeah, but this is the direction that the league is going. The league is going towards the safety being a coverage position. And so the ability to cover man-to-man or tight zone and play really tight coverage is at a premium. So Renardo Green might wind up being their free safety. We'll see, because, I mean, otherwise, to me, Hafanga's not going to be there week one, and he's better in the box. I think Jair Brown's better in the box, though I do think he's probably the free safety if, push comes to shove. Mustafa looks more like a box player than a coverage player. We'll have to see what he looks like this summer when, he's on the field and we're seeing it for real.
More like a linebacker than he does
right.
He plays in the secondary.
Yeah, he's totally looks like a hitter. He looks like a box player. So, but he also did play that bandit, and he played all three levels of the defense at Wake Forest, and maybe he's a better coverage player than we think. But if he isn't, then who's the best free safety? It might be Renardo Green. So, and they're so deep on the corner right now, relatively deep, that a guy like Green, if he does impress this summer and they're trying to get him on the field, they're probably going to put him at free safety. So we'll see. We'll see. That one's interesting, but I think the Niners had probably closed the door on Gipson before this, but now the way it works is he gets to go to training camp. He gets to play in the preseason, but then when we get to week one, he's staring at a 6-game suspension.
He's not even on the roster.
What's that?
He's not even on the roster right now.
Yeah, no, he's not on their roster, but I don't think he's going to be on it. I don't think he's the caliber of player right now that he's going to get signed. I think he's not going to get signed until after the 6 games are over.
His biggest sin is not getting PED popped. His biggest sin is he's 34.
Yeah. He's played his best ball.
Yeah. So there it is. Like that's what we got on the Niners today. At least that's what I got on my end here, Larry. I do think there are enough things going on with the Warriors.
Yeah.
They merit a little bit of a conversation on this show here today. But to everyone who's just on board with 49ers, thank you for watching today. And like and subscribe to both channels. We haven't asked you to do that once yet this entire show. Larry, I do have something. I know that, I don't bring a lot of my advertisers over to our shared channel show, but I just got something. Anyone who downloads the Ike's Rewards app by midnight tonight will have $4 waiting for them to apply to sandwiches for the 4th of July. So Ike is putting $4 in credit to anyone who signs up for that app and is signed up by midnight tonight. So if you like Ike sandwiches, and I know an awful lot of your viewers love Ike sandwiches, who doesn't? Go ahead, download that app, and don't be that guy. Don't be that guy that said, "Hey, I've tried to go to the App Store, but it was closed." Don't be that guy. Don't lie to us about the App Store. Don't lie to us. Don't lie to us about anything.
Don't tell us that you went by the App Store and it was closed. Don't tell us that.
Dog
ate you're lying.
Homework. Dog ate my look. So
I stopped by the App Store and the door was locked. I couldn't get in.
When you were a little bit late today, some people thought that you were having a morning sauna, just crushing some pig and pickle for breakfast. But look, so there you go. Download the Ike's app, and you'll be very happy that you did. You get $4 free to put towards sandwiches on the 4th of July. So look, Golden State Warriors are sitting down. They're in serious talks. What is this?
This guy, Z Niners. Larry, how do you pay $5,000 a month in rent to live in San Francisco, receiving $5 every 20 minutes?
Okay, so Larry doesn't live in San Francisco.
I don't live in San Francisco. I don't pay $5,000 for rent, but I probably pay close to that for mortgage out here in the East Bay. because we don't exist on chat money alone.
Larry,
there are sponsors to these shows, there are commercials within these shows. YouTube, part of the money you get are the chats, but I mean, obviously, it's not a very high percentage.
This is more of a question for me because I am paying north of a $5,000 a month mortgage in San Francisco, and there are days when, Larry, I'll just be honest with everyone. Jumping into the content creation business on YouTube without a steady paycheck is an adventure. There's no doubt about it. And you do have to secure your own advertising around your channel, which I've done, which you've done. But there are days when I just look at my returns on, how much money did I make on YouTube today? Before Ike or the Dubliner sponsors me, before BetUS does anything with you, Larry, before Pig and a Pickle pays you a dime for all the exposure that you've given them. There are days, and I'm guessing you're past these days, Larry, because you're 2 years further down the road in YouTube than I am. I don't know what you average over 48 hours in views, but I get around 30,000-ish views per day.
We're getting right now. We're getting about 1 million views a month out of season. But give you an example, in season we got as many as 4 million views in a month.
So my goal, I've got a few benchmark goals that I have for this upcoming football season for my channel, and getting 1 million views within a month's time is certainly one of them. I think that we're going to be able to do that. It's going to be a big year 2 for the Plus here in football season. But there are days when I'll tell Jillian, I'll be like, hey, honey, I made $33 today. And I just have to say,
that's why, I mean, it is, people who, there's money to be made on YouTube for sure. It's a little bit of a grind in the first couple of years, to be completely honest.
Yeah.
And when I say a couple of years, I'm just talking about a couple of years for people who have some notoriety. If you don't have any notoriety, it's probably going to take you more like, I don't know, 5 years, 10 years. It's going to take you a while.
Real long time. You better have some incredible cleavage that you're flashing in every video, or be incredibly intelligent and have an angle that no one's ever heard before.
But once you get up to, a certain traction level, you start to make more money. But never, don't worry about us. I'll just say that. Don't worry about us.
But there are days when I make $30, and I go, holy shit! Look at the life I'm living now. It's
a grind. It's a grind, and it's not instant gratification. And there's lots of people that start YouTube channels, and they burn out, they quit, they do whatever, they can't keep it going, they can't sustain it. Then there's a lot of people that have secondary income. Raj is a physical therapist. He's a doctor. He's a doctor of physical therapy. Jesse sells insurance or something. Hensley does mortgages, right? I think that's what he does. So Vish has got a job in Chicago. I mean, their coach does cybersecurity. I mean, these guys all have jobs, all have careers.
I'm an underwear
they're
model.
Starting this. Exactly.
I'm an underwear model.
I'm a hand model. And these hands have been in lots of movies.
Wow. Look at those. Look at that. Not a callus to be found.
Actually, that's a callus right there.
Actually, there is a callus to be found right there.
Yeah. But when I used to live on this hand, I get some calluses too, right up here.
There you go.
There you go. That's a hard callus right there. Roger Morales says, I believe Aiyuk can have the Cooper Cup production if he's targeted and made wide receiver 1. Wouldn't mind him out of the NFC West. I mean, he could be, but the bottom line is, like, I think Aiyuk's targets are probably going down. They're not going up. You just added Ricky Pearsall. From what I can tell, Brock Purdy's going to drop back to pass. He's going to throw it to Ricky Pearsall. He's going to throw it to Juwan Jennings. He's going to throw it to Debo. He's going to throw it to Kittle.
You can't throw it to the guy who's not on the field.
But I'm just saying, I think if you say to me, how many catches is Pearsall going to have? He's going to have more catches than Aiyuk had. And Aiyuk than JJ had last year. JJ, I think, had like 15.
19.
Was it 19 targets or 19
catches?
Yeah, I think Pearsall is going to catch between 30 and 40 balls.
We'll see.
We'll see. We'll see.
We'll see.
But I think he's that effective of a route runner that he's going to get open, and I think they're going to justify his draft choice in the first round. I also think there'll be injuries, and that's just the way football is. There always is injuries. But I just think Pearsall's a high volume target. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. I don't know. You want to talk a little Warriors? Oh, the only other thing on the Niners that I thought was interesting is Breer keeps talking about how Justin Simmons he thinks would be a perfect fit for the Niner defense, because we were talking about who's going to play free safety. Simmons is got that coverage ability. He played corner at Boston College, and he's played some corner in the NFL. He's got the ability to cover, and he's still out there. They want to sign Justin Simmons. The Niners have the sixth most cap room. They're looking to roll over most of it to pay Purdy next year, probably north of $60 million. But if they get, I think they really like Mustafa and Green, and I think they're going to roll with that. But if they get to camp and Mustafa can't play and Green can't play, yeah, I think Simmons might be a phone call away. I think that makes sense.
If you can, you probably should, right? He's the deep cover corner that right now probably isn't on this roster, or you haven't identified him on this roster yet. So, or a deep cover safety, pardon me. All right, let's talk a little Warriors. Again, it's been a pretty interesting few hours, a couple of days for the Warriors. And Woj is saying that right now they're in serious talks with Buddy Hield about doing a sign and trade there, and John Hollinger saying that they might have to wrap it up into the sign and trade and turn it into a 5-team mega trade to get it all done smoothly and make sure that your cap is where you need it to be and the luxury, blah, 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 blah. There's a lot of moving parts to NBA contracts, more than you would assume. But they added Kyle Anderson as a free agent on a very team-friendly 3-year deal. Kyle Anderson is, again,
horrible to watch.
A master of no trades, but a jack of all trades. You know, he's 7-4-4 just about every night. Not much of a shooter, but he's a defensive player.
He's a brutal form shooter. I mean, it's painful. If Klay Thompson has a beautiful shot, this guy's got a fucking ugly shot.
Right.
Because it's truly ugly. He sticks his butt out. He's got the ball up front. He shoots it like a fourth grader shoots it in the CYO.
Well, he's not much of a shooter. I mean, that's the thing.
He's it's the ugliest shot in the league. He's got the ugliest shot in the league.
You don't want him making a lot of shots, but he's a good passer. I think
supposedly a good defender. I don't know.
The Warriors are going to be playing a lot of interior passing, tic-tac-toe in the lane, I think, with Trace Jackson Davis there. So I think he's going to fit this team. And when you think about it, the opening scene in Moneyball, right? All the scouts are sitting around a table with Brad Pitt, and they're like, here are the players we're interested in. And he's like, you're trying to replace Giambi. You can't. But you try to make up his numbers in the aggregate.
It's a ridiculous movie, by the way.
If
they had Mulder, Zito, and Hudson, and there's no mention of them.
Right. But if this Buddy Hield deal goes through between Buddy Hield, Kyle Guy, and Kyle Anderson, between Buddy Hield, Kyle Anderson, and DeAnthony Melton, they've kind of replaced Klay Thompson in the aggregate, right?
Well, okay.
They got a decent on-ball defender, and they got a guy who does kind of the other little things that don't really show up in the box score but are important. I think the Warriors are playing defensive basketball this year, Larry. I think they're putting together a team that says, everybody in this league scores about 115, 118 points a night. That's where we were, and we had kind of an offensive year last year. I think everyone rolls out of bed scoring 115. So we're just going to try to keep the opponent under 110, and we are going to really commit to playing defense in the regular season, and that's our only path out of this. I think that's what the Warriors are doing. They're building a little bit of a defensive basketball team, and you better not waste a single night where Curry goes for at least 38. You need to win that game every time.
Well, I mean, first of all, if we're judging them on the moves they've made, they're going to suck because the moves they've made are totally ordinary. DeAnthony Melton was hurt last year. Buddy Hield, you could say, is a journeyman. Lindy Waters, journeyman. Quentin Post is a nice center who can shoot the ball, but he has no real game other than a perimeter shot. They're big fish they're going after is Lauri Markkanen. But let's talk about this for a second. There's a couple really interesting things here. One, slow-mo is Kyle Anderson's nickname. And he is a slow-mo guy, and they gave him $9 million a year for 3 years. 3 years, $27 million. The third year is non-guaranteed. The Timberwolves get a future second round pick swap and cash in a sign-and trade, according to Woj. And Anderson, they say, is going to jump right into the rotation. He played 79 games last year, 19 starts. He averaged 6.9 points, 4.2 rebounds. He played 22 minutes a night.
He's a player. I mean, he's an NBA player. He's
an NBA player, but
he's a player.
To me, he doesn't move the needle, and he's terrible to watch. So I can't. That one I can't stand. Because I like watching entertaining players, and he's probably the least athletic player in the league. So I don't love that one. But then the Warriors also are engaged in sign-and trades for Buddy Hield. And this is Shams who had this yesterday. And the Warriors and Sixers trying to work out the details. Supposedly it's like a second-round pick going back for Buddy Hield. Hield has knocked down 40% of 7.6 three-point attempts per game over the course of his 8-year career. In some ways, Damon, I think this is a genius move because you're getting a replacement shooter who I think is going to be really good in the Warriors system of body movement, ball movement. I think he'll be really good to play on a team that's a winning team, that has a winning culture with players that share the ball. I mean, Buddy's played on some bad teams. He himself has been selfish at times. He needs to play more team ball. But I think he is going to do a good job at replicating Klay Thompson's role on the offense for a whole lot less money. So I like Buddy Hield. I think Buddy Hield makes sense.
Replacing Klay Thompson in the aggregate, which is just what I said. Yeah,
Klay, I think they're in some ways better, right? Because Klay Thompson is going to make a lot of money. Buddy Hield's not going to make a lot of money, and DeAnthony Melton's making very reasonable money too. Melton's issue is health. He's a decent guard, and he's a decent defender, and he's
plus defender. He is okay everywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's better than his stats. And I think I like that pickup. They've liked him for a while. And Lindsey Waters, who they got from OKC, can shoot the ball. Hield now can shoot the ball. As I said, Anderson's shot is just
By the way, you can
ugly.
take the super chat down. We're not even talking football anymore.
Okay. But I mean, as far as the bigger issue here, I mean, the big story here, which we haven't talked about, but it's the big story is that Joe Lacob reportedly led the Warriors' very cold negotiations with Klay Thompson. The relationship between Klay and the Warriors, they say, deteriorated over the last couple of weeks, and that he made this decision, a few weeks ago. And then he basically called Steph Curry and said, don't try to exert your influence in the situation. I want the team to want me. And they clearly don't. And I don't want you to get involved and make them, force them to want me. And I think that was interesting because he knows that Steph's got enough clout to sway these negotiations. But I did think it was interesting that Lacob, the Warriors think about it. They're literally talking out of both sides of their mouth if this report is true. Dunleavy was like, we're desperate to have Klay return. Kerr was like, we absolutely want Klay to come back. We're desperate to have him back. The coach and the GM both said they were desperate to have him back. And the owner supposedly is the one who led their cold negotiations with Klay and clearly didn't want him back.
Well, here's the unspoken truth of this offseason. Getting under the second apron was a priority. Getting out of the luxury tax entirely is the result of this new mindset. And I think the Warriors are looking for 1 year of financial relief to reset the organization's finances. And, it's certainly hard to root for a Ledger It's hard to root for accounting, but I'm not going to begrudge Joe Lacob for not throwing more money at a team that had contention probably in its rearview mirror anyway, and for Joe to be the hardline negotiator in this moment when the guy is cracking off like nearly $200 million luxury tax bills and got 2 years of not playoffs to show for it. Like, I kind of get it. I really do. And I don't think that the Warriors, as they're built right now, are an awful basketball team, nor do I believe that they're about to be a champion. And this is the new reality and world that Warriors fans need to acknowledge they're living in. You need to stop pounding the table and say, one more. Dude, the dynasty is over. This is a whole new thing now. And building towards the future and ending Steph Curry's career with as much competitive dignity as humanly possible is now the goal. And it'll be next year where I think the big splash move will happen. Even if, suppose they do come up with a trade for Lauri Markkanen, is that are now they, considered along with the Denver Nuggets and Dallas Mavericks a favorite to win the West? I don't think
Depends.
so.
Now, this is interesting too, because Markkanen is an all-star and he's a big man. He's 27. He can shoot the ball. He went to the U of A. According to Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype, Utah would only be willing to deal away Markkanen in exchange for a package similar to what the Knicks got, or what the Knicks sent to the Nets to acquire Mikal Bridges.
Well, five first rounders?
The Knicks sent 5 first rounders and an unprotected pick swap in that deal. So, and supposedly the Warriors and the Spurs have interest in Markkanen. Supposedly the Kings and the T-Wolves also have interest in Markkanen. Sacramento is reluctant to put Keegan Murray on the table in trade scenarios, which is a deal breaker. If they don't put Keegan out there, there's no way they're getting Markkanen. And now the Kings, they say, may shift their focus to Brandon Ingram. As for the Wolves, they're operating over the second apron and barely have any future draft capital available, so it's hard to envision that they have a route to trade for Markkanen. So the Warriors may not be competing with as many teams as you think for Markkanen. It's interesting. I mean, if Mikal Bridges can draw 5 first-round picks in a trade, then maybe, the Warriors can make a deal here for Markkanen, and not the factor here from what I'm reading is that the Warriors don't want to trade Jonathan Kuminga in the deal. They want to keep Kuminga. The Warriors want to make a deal, and you can make the deal without Kuminga. And this is the way it would look. It would be Lauri Markkanen to the Warriors. Utah would get Brandon Pajemski, Moses Moody, Gary Payton II, and then a bunch of draft picks. And the question is Markkanen worth that? Because that's the deal that the Warriors want to make. They don't want to trade Kuminga. They want to keep Kuminga. But would you trade, let's just say, I don't think 5. Let's say 3. We'll say 3 first-round picks, Payton, Moody, and Pajemski. Payton's 31, Moody's 22, Pajemski's 21 for Markkanen, who's 7 feet 240, he's 27. I think I would do that deal. I don't want to move Kuminga, but if it was 3-1s, especially if you thought they were going to be the back of the first, and the way teams buy and sell 1s and 2s, it seems like there's always an ability to get back in the draft somehow, some way, if you can, trade your way there. So I think I would. I think I would pull the trigger on that. And then if you have Lauri Markkanen, then your team would be, Trace Jackson Davis and Quentin Post at the 5, with Draymond Green. Markkanen would play the 4. Kuminga would play 3 and 4. And then you'd have Kyle Anderson there as well. They're still trying to move Andrew Wiggins.
Look, the thing, if Wiggins isn't involved in the Markkanen deal,
no, he wouldn't be.
He's a starter. You're starting.
He's a starter, but there's also talk they may move Wiggins. I mean, there's a lot of talk they're shopping Wiggins, but then they would have Buddy Hield and DeAnthony Melton, and at the 2, Curry and Waters at the 1. I don't know. There's also, there's also another rumored Wiggins trade. Would you make this Wiggins trade? This is out right now. A guy wrote this, that the Warriors trade proposal here flips Wiggins to, it would be Wiggins to the Bulls. Zach Buckley of Bleacher Report, he says he's got Wiggins, Moody, Payton, and Looney to the Bulls for Zach LaVine, Javon Carter, and a first-round pick in 2026 that would be top 3 protected. Would you? I mean, it depends how bad. It depends how urgent the Warriors are to move Wiggins. Well, LaVine makes a huge money, so you got to have some money going back. Doesn't sound like you can make both.
When he's not hurt, he's a huge talent. I mean, he really is.
LaVine, yeah.
But I also, just don't like bringing in guys with knee problems and leg problems. Who's a leaper?
Yeah,
and I don't know.
He's an above the rim player whose legs are not what they were. This guy won the dunk contest over Aaron Gordon, 7 years ago or something like that? I mean, it was a while ago.
In the sneakiest, maybe best dunk contest ever. That was a hell of a dunk contest.
It really was. They actually got together twice. The first one was the one we're referring to, where LaVine beat Gordon. And I think it was like 7 or 8 years ago. I mean, it was a while ago now.
It's a while ago.
But Wiggins, it sounds like Wiggins is available. I mean, I don't know. I mean, we'll see what the Warriors can muster as far as trades. They also have, what complicates things is I believe they have a trade exception that they got in the Klay Thompson deal. And I think that
isn't that used to sign Buddy Hield?
Wasn't
that used to sign Kyle Anderson? I think that's out the door.
I think part of it was out the door, but I didn't think all of it was. But maybe I'm wrong. Maybe you can't split it up. So I don't know. The other interesting note on the Warrior front is the Warriors hired Terry Stotts and Jerry Stackhouse.
Right.
Terry Stotts, the former head coach of the Blazers, and Stackhouse, both added to the Warriors coaching staff. I thought
Forget about all that, Larry. He's from Bloomington. Terry Stotts is from Bloomington, baby. Whenever you can add a native Hoosier to your coaching staff, I suggest you do so.
Maybe they'll go for Cody Zeller then.
Get Cody Zeller in here. Call Calbert Chaney. See if he wants to come back. What's Keith Smart doing? What the hell? But yeah, Terry Stotts has been there, done that, seen it all around this league. Will be a trusted agent of Steve Kerr's, I'm sure. What Jerry Stackhouse brings to the table, other than being a hell of a player back in his days, I got to find out a little bit more about that. But I like Stackhouse. And the Warriors had to replace 2 coaches on Steve Kerr's staff, with Kenny Atkinson just taking the Cleveland Cavaliers job. So, good luck to the Golden State Warriors. Next year is going to look a lot different, but I bet you it's kind of about the same year where they're going to be flirting with that sort of, are you a play-in playoff team, or can you avoid it, get to the 6th seed? And look, I'm telling you, Larry, with some defense, it's the only way that they're going to get there. I don't think the Warriors are going to be able to out-talent anybody. They're not going to be able to out-athleticism many teams in this league. They're going to have to work harder defensively than they've ever worked before. And Klay Thompson's going to have to not get suspended. And if Andrew Wiggins remains on the team, he's going to have to whip it out and show it to us and stop playing like such a pussy every night. And that's the way out of this.
You said Klay Thompson. You meant Draymond, I'm sure, right?
Yes, I did. I meant Draymond Green.
And they're not going anywhere. Come on, they're not going anywhere. There's all kinds of good talent in the West, and they're not. They're going to be maybe a play-in team. I mean, we'll see. I mean, we'll see if they can keep Kuminga. If they can keep Kuminga and add Markkanen, that would be really nice. But they still got to figure.
Larry wrote a really good article about the Warriors and their financial standings and all of this, and why a lot of these moves are unspectacular but necessary and on the down low kind of smart moves. And this, John Hollinger sort of wrote an article saying this offseason is proving that Mike Dunleavy Jr. is good at this. And again, these aren't names that leave people sitting up applauding, getting excited about the Warriors, but these are productive players that are added at price points the Warriors had to serve. And he basically says, so what do they do from here? The Warriors have a middling to good team in an awesome conference, which is how they won 46 games last year, yet still missed the playoffs. A similar outcome seems highly plausible again. And I think that that's the most honest evaluation of what they're looking at. The Warriors are about to be in that very dangerous NBA space where you're good. And that's all you are. You're good. You don't suck, which means you never get the premium picks. You're not great, so you're not really contending anymore. You're a 43-44 win NBA team. And if you are a 43-44 win NBA team for a handful of years in a row, that can fuck you up.
Well, I mean, there's only one way to get it done. Unless you're the Lakers, there's only one way to get it done. And that's been proven for decades, which is you got to draft your guys. You got to draft guys. That means the first round, the second round, you got to draft guys. There's no shortcuts. You're not going to be, the Lakers got Shaq to leave Orlando. The Lakers got, made an incredible trade once upon a time for James Worthy. And then, but outside of the Lakers, every other team in basketball has had to go do it in the draft. And it used to be all about the lottery. And now it's a little bit different because the talent's a little bit more speculative and a little bit more spread out. But now in some ways it benefits the really astute personnel evaluating teams because you can find a great player in the second round. You can find Jokic in the second round. You can find Draymond Green in the second round. There's all kinds of good players in the second round. I think one of the best draft picks in this last draft was Baylor Shireman. He went with the last pick in the first round of the Celtics. The guy can flat out play.
It's a great fit for him. It really is.
He can shoot it. He can shoot it. And they're going to love him in Boston. He's going to be really, really good. So if Golden State wants to be good, they're going to have to go draft. There's not going to, these moves are nice if you can get Markin in, if you can make a couple nice trades. But come on, it's really about, do you improve your talent level in the draft? They did a nice job last year. We'll see what they got out of this year's draft, out of Waters and Post and whoever they signed to their summer league team. But
the Warriors,
that's really it.
The Warriors' formula for their success that everyone just enjoyed really doesn't even exist anymore in the NBA. The formula the Warriors deployed was, hey, make sure you draft future Hall of Famers, which they did. Then make sure you have an owner who is willing to throw any dollar amount at any problem he might see and just spend like a drunken sailor on shore leave. And Joe Lacob was that. Now, the drunken sailor on shore leave has been so punitively scored against with the second apron that you cannot be that anymore and run a business. Like, the Warriors have ushered in a level of punitive damage on overspending to where no team can really afford it. It's kind of the reason why the Boston Celtics are for sale right now, because the Boston Celtics have $1 billion worth of contracts wrapped up in 4 or 5 guys. And 2 years from now, their luxury tax bill is going to be in the neighborhood of $300 million. The luxury tax bill. That's after they've paid for everything. You get a $300 million fluff on that. The Warriors just had a record luxury tax bill that was like 180 million, whatever it was. Now, right, the next, like, oh my God, because you got Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum now with the 2 biggest overall contracts in basketball history. The Celtics' future luxury tax bill is enough to make the owners say, let's sell the team. Let's get out of this right now. So that's the new NBA world. Throwing money at problems is really no longer the option. So yeah, getting smarter, drafting better, prudent decisions, staying in.
And it's also about you also have to kind of sell yourself to the players. Guys will take less to come play on a winning team if they think your team's going to be a winning team. Now, if they trade for Markkanen,
not the Lakers. No one's taking money. LeBron left money on the table to go sign, and no one's coming to the Lakers. Notice that?
Well, but the Lakers were talking about they supposedly wanted Clay. I was kind of surprised Clay didn't pick the Lakers, to be honest. You didn't want to play. You didn't want to play in front of your dad?
No.
You've already made $200 million. Do you really need a few more bucks?
He's going to have more than a few more bucks in Dallas, and he's on a team that was in Game 6 of the NBA Finals last year.
Right, but is he? I don't know. To me, I'd rather play in LA with the Lakers.
Or was it over in 5? Was the Finals over in 5?
Yeah,
6. Okay.
Gentleman sweep. The There's one other.
Larry, I got to run. I told you that I had a hard out here, and we are already past it. I do have to run. I got a big phone call that I got to make. This was great, though. This was a fun show. I wish we had a little bit more time. I'm going to keep going at 11 o'clock on the Plus. I know you got my man Cyrus coming up.
Cyrus is coming up in 20 minutes. Let me hit these last two here. We've got SG Sports channel member for 8 months. He says, hi, Larry and Damon, long time no see. How have you two gentlemen been doing? And I wish you two the best of luck. And you two are the GOATs on YouTube.
Thank you.
And Drunken Ninja says, Dunleavy's moves has been as watchable as his time as a player. That's not an endorsement.
He's already a better GM than he was a player.
Great 1765 says Isaac Okoro would be a good pickup for Golden State. Big guard who can defend and shoot. You know what? Isaac Okoro would be interesting just from the standpoint of he is that 2-3, and I believe he made like 39% of his threes last year. So if Isaac Okoro's outside shot comes around, which it appears to have this last year, he suddenly becomes a very valuable player because he's a very great athlete who can defend. And he's, he can get up and down. And the whole point of him coming out of college is he couldn't shoot the ball from the perimeter. But last year, 39% from three. So getting a Okoro right now might be a good play. That's a good idea. I like that one. All right, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to Pig in a Pickle. Thanks to Ike's. Thanks to all of you guys. I believe we've got everybody's super. I hate to lose anybody's super, but
we want to be super guys. We don't want to be the kind of guys who don't read the super chats, especially when there are days when Damon's making like $36. We need to go ahead and give the supers all the love that we can. So God bless them.
Thanks to everybody for supporting the channel. Big day for me on the channel as tomorrow is the 4th of July. So today, normally a Wednesday, I'm doing some of the stuff that I do on Thursday. So Wednesday today, obviously Damon and I at 8:45, which I was a little late for. And then 10:45, Cyrus is going to stop by. We'll talk more Warriors with Cy coming up in about 20 minutes. And then 8 o'clock tonight, the great Dieter Kurtenbach, who normally stops by on Thursdays. We'll go a little Wednesday with Dieter so we can blow stuff up tomorrow on the 4th of July. So that coming up tonight at 8 o'clock. Other than that, I will be at the gym trying to beat the heat because that's one place where there's AC.
Are we doing a Friday morning wake up?
I'm ready for it. I'll absolutely be here Friday morning. Friday morning, we will absolutely do wake up, and it will be glorious. And at that point, we might actually have some concrete Warrior stuff to report on. What I was going to say there right before we jetted is, there's people that are speculating that KD, if the Warriors made the right series of moves because of the lack of money on the table that exists in the free agent market, that a guy like KD may choose to want to come back here for 1 year.
Larry, now you bring this up in the final sentence of the show. Come on.
I just saw it. I wanted to bring it up earlier, but I just saw it. They're saying that maybe KD would be willing to jump to one or two title contenders, and maybe the Warriors are on that list. And that supposedly, according to Woj, many of the Warrior players have reached out to KD throughout the season and have kept in contact with him. So who knows? I mean, you want to do something right now. The Warriors are not a playoff team. If they get Lauri Markkanen and don't move Jonathan Kuminga, suddenly they are a playoff team, and they probably are more like a 5 seed, 6 seed, 7 seed. If they can somehow add Kevin Durant on top of that, now the title window's back open.
That's what Phoenix thought, and we all saw Kevin Durant have a year where he put up his numbers. But I'm telling you right now, Kevin Durant has nothing. He's old. Is getting old, and I don't think Kevin Durant equals title anymore. Kevin Durant got
with Markkanen. With what if they get healed, let's just say at the end of this thing, they wind up with DeAnthony Melton, Buddy Hield, Lindy Waters, Kyle Anderson, Lauri Markkanen, Quentin Post, and somehow KD was in the mix.
How do you fit all that in? How do you fit all that in without getting into your luxury?
Well, the point would be that KD would come last and come cheap to try to literally try to steal one more ring. And that might hit, if that happens, Damon, think about it. Do you remember where you were when KD signed with the Warriors on the 4th of July? Could you imagine if the Warriors signed KD again on the 4th of July? Wouldn't that be something?
I'm looking forward to the Sports Illustrated cover story. I am. Larry, I got to run. You're the best. Thank you very much. Thanks for watching. Like and subscribe, all those good things, and come back Friday morning with as many fingers as you have right now. It's a 10-finger Wednesday. Make sure it's a 10-finger Friday when we're back together.
You know, it would be so cool to have a guy, a real basketball guy, not like you, Lowry, or you, Damon. KD's a real basketball guy. Trent Baalke says, you know what? My vote is KD. Bring him back.